Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Soul Inspired Playground. My name is Madura Joshi and I'm your host and success and mindset business and life coach. You can go to www.igniteyourinnerpotential.ca to find out more about myself. And I'm also the new author of a book called Ignite the Magical Powers of Your Inner Genie, available on Amazon right now. So I'm so excited this week. We have a fantastic new guest on. We've got the beautiful Andrea, who is a transformational life coach and business coach and much, much more, but she will explain that all to you guys in a bit here. And we're going to be talking about 3 ways to really transform the relationship you have with your family forever, which I think is a topic that many of us have kind of struggled with over the last, probably over our lifetimes. But this will really help you change that relationship and change the dynamic that you currently have with your family. So welcome, Andrea.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So excited to have you. I know that you've traveled quite a bit over the last little while, and now you're finally in Calgary for a little bit before heading back to beautiful Bali, which is exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll go back at the end of the month. But it was so nice to come back in May and travel across Canada by car and visit all of our friends and family. So it was really a transformational time for me.
Awesome, awesome. So why don't we start by telling the audience a little bit more about yourself, how you became a coach, and how you've kind of come to this point.
Well, I guess I've been doing this kind of work most of my life, and becoming a coach and teaming together with my partner, Allison, was just a way to formalize it, I guess, and reach a larger audience and just be able to have a hub. We've got the online business, so we have a hub from which we can do our courses and talk to our people. And it just formalized what I've always done in my life. So at a very young age, I always knew this was kind of the work I was going to do. So it's not too surprising, but super exciting.
Awesome, awesome. So I know we were kind of brainstorming a bit about what different topics to talk about today. So I think maybe we can jump right in and talk about how we can change those relationships with our family, because I know for myself in the past and probably still in the present, family is the one one group of people that can trigger you in ways you never knew possible. And it could be something as small as saying one word and you want to rip them to shreds. So I think this is a very timely conversation, especially because I will be traveling to India to be with family, and I'm sure there will be something that might trigger me along the way. So I think this is a very timely conversation and timely topic. So why don't you start us off, Andrea?
Excuse me. So, you know what they say about family? If you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family. I came to visit my family this year after 6 years of not speaking to my father. 6 years. And he reached out to me while I was in Bali and remembered that it was going to be my 50th birthday. Wasn't feeling so good about the distance we had and the fact that we hadn't talked for 6 years, and asked me to come and make sure that I visited when we came across Canada. So that was exciting because I had already accepted the fact that perhaps, I don't know, maybe that would never happen. I just let myself accept that and realize that however I was going to feel was up to me, and that I could choose that and decide that, and that he or the rest of my family or my relationship with them didn't dictate how I was going to feel and how I was going to move through my life. So 6 years ago when that happened, I went through probably a year of pain and suffering, upset. How could this happen? How could they do this to me? How could I be ousted? You know, it was very tough. Once I felt my feelings and I allowed them to pass, I came back into a neutral position. I decided that, you know, I had work to do, because if this was happening in my life, then I had a responsibility in it. And so the first choice I made was to find and take responsibility for what was going on with my family, and then find out by digging deep within myself what I could let go of, you know, to perhaps let go of the pain and suffering, let go of the relationship as it is, let go of the expectations that I had for my family to act a certain way in order for me to be happy. So that was a big step. And it took a lot of time and a lot of practice. But when the time came that my father contacted me again, different in my life. First of all, I had no expectation for him to ever contact me, and that was truly okay with me. I didn't harbor any bad feelings or upset toward him or toward anyone in my family. I had come to the understanding that I was where I was and they are where they are, and because we're all going in the same place and we'll all meet there one day, well, we all have different ways of getting there. So I really had gained an acceptance for all the different processes of my family members, and of course, my own process of growth and change. So it was really wonderful to hear from him, because I felt like it was time. And at the same time, I was scared to death. Scared to death. Just didn't know what to expect. Didn't know how they were going to react. And just because my father changed his mind, well, how was my brother going to react? How was my sister-in-law going to react? How was my other sister going to react? So we did our cross-Canada trip, and I ended up in Calgary, and I was welcomed into the home, and I had a really amazing transformational experience that just tied up the loose ends of the work that I did for myself. And what I noticed, the thing I noticed the most when I got there, first time in my life, I'm going to be 50 this year, and it was the first time in my life that nothing bothered me. No way that my father spoke, nothing that he said to me. He hadn't really changed. I mean, he changed a little, but he was still the same person, you know? So he talked the same way, and he still had his exacting Italian cultural values, which didn't change, but it didn't bother me anymore. None of it bothered me. I was just grateful and happy to be in his presence, and that was enough. I all of a sudden didn't have any expectations for his behavior. I didn't feel any less or more, no matter what he said. And I wasn't looking to him to approve of my life, to like my life, to ask me about my life. It just didn't matter anymore, because over the last 6 years, I had learned to give all of that to myself. And it was a revelation. So now my family, which is my biggest trigger point, or used to be, not anymore, even my family, I have no expectations of. They are simply people on doing their best. So what a healing experience that was.
That sounds absolutely amazing. Yeah, I can only imagine that it's probably very, very freeing to not really need their approval or need, or even be triggered by what they say, right? You can just accept them for them, good, bad, ugly, and just know that, yeah, they're on their own journey and they're doing their best. And it just makes it for such a more peaceful experience. And that's amazing that after 6 years, it was such a beautiful experience. It wasn't a frustrating one, or it wasn't anything that I guess triggered you, which in itself is beautiful, because that was probably something that you always wanted but never received. And I think the biggest thing is not that lack of needing, or not needing their approval, because I think a lot of us have struggled with that. I know I've struggled with that for a long time, where I felt that I needed my parents to say, oh, I approve of what you're doing, or I'm proud of you, or whatever it may be. And as soon as I released that need, life became so much easier, because as soon as I stopped wanting for it, it started to show up, and I was like, oh, that's what that feels like. Oh well, and then it didn't make it any better or any worse. It just was kind of like, oh, okay, sure, let's go on our way. And but yeah. So what would you say is the first thing that we should look at when trying to change that relationship, or trying to change that dynamic, from your experience recently?
I really believe from my experience that the first thing to look at is, in any situation, whether it's your family or any other situation, is yourself. Because if it's happening to you, with you, if it's happening around you, if you're part of it, you're co-creating it. And even if you don't realize, so you're not conscious creation in it, that's even more of a reason to look at yourself, because then that means that we're operating on old habits, old tapes, old ways of acting and reacting, and we're not really aware of what it is we're creating in our lives. And we are creators. So every thought, every action, every emotion is creating a little world in front of us that we get to be a part of. And if we don't like the little world that we're creating, we can change our minds. Now, it sounds easy, but it does take some work and a lot of practice when you start looking at yourself and it starts becoming conscious, because it's not so easy to look at sometimes that, oh, I made that decision. Oh, I'm the one who wasn't very nice. Oh, I'm the one who didn't tell the whole truth. Oh, I'm the one who doesn't really like myself. So that's not so easy to face. However, it's very liberating, because it allows you to see what's underneath, because that's not who we are. That's our facade, our upbringing, our habits. But who we truly are lies underneath all of that. So if we have the courage to face it, it becomes liberated. All the pain and suffering and ugliness becomes liberated. And we're just left with these beautiful, wonderful beings that we are. And this ability to choose that we haven't fully utilized in our lives. And once we begin to choose based on ourselves, based on our desires, based on who we are or who we want to be, different. Life is, you're able to cope with it. You're able to deal with it because you see yourself in it, and you see yourself as the conductor of it for yourself. So looking at yourself is the number one thing to do in any situation, but especially in family situations, in family strife. Because if you can fix yourself, if you can let go of the things that get in the way of you having a nice, easy relationship with your family, that's all it takes. Only one person to do that. So part of the healing experience I had was that I was able to serve. I was available to serve my father, serve my sister, be there for my brother. And so there was a lot more space in our interactions. And the effect of my transformation, effect on each one of them, just through witnessing it. So already there's a transformation occurring in my family. And really all I did was transform myself. So it's pretty cool.
That is cool to know that you really have that power to say, well, if I transform, everyone else kind of falls in line, because they'll see either subconsciously or energetically or whatever it might be, they'll fall in suit. It's just like trying to have an argument with someone who's extremely calm. It just doesn't work, because their energy is so calm that you're like, oh, well, I can't really argue with you because you're not saying anything, right? So I think that, yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. So
you bring yourself out of resistance. And once you're out of resistance, then, well, there's no fighting, there's no strife, there's nothing in the way.
Yeah. So what would you say is number 2 on that list of ways to change that dynamic, family wise, and anything actually, but specifically with family?
Right. Well, one of the things I realized I was left with when my family kind of disengaged from me was a lot of shame. There was a lot of shame. I felt ashamed of who I was, ashamed of what I hadn't yet accomplished, ashamed that I didn't have enough money, ashamed that I didn't have all the things I was supposed to have at my age, ashamed that my parents didn't approve of the decisions or the trajectory that I had decided to take, ashamed that they couldn't see anything good. So all that shame was really debilitating. It got in the way of my self-worth, and of course got in the way of myself and my ability to then continue to choose the kind of life that I wanted to live. So I did go through a period of questioning, whether or not, like maybe I should just throw in the towel and live the life that they have wanted me to live from the beginning. And I had to go through that little bit of contemplation there to finally realize, no, like it's not in me. What's in me to do, I need to do. And that was enough to make me take a look at and tackle my shame. I've got a great little worksheet that I've put together on different ways to let go of your shame. It's something that I'm going to be giving out as a free gift during my live stream series coming up this week on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Awesome.
Exact shame sheet that I used to let go of my own shame. And I wrote it all down and put it all together in the hopes that it would help somebody else. And it's going to be absolutely free. All you need to do is tune into the live stream, and I'm going to give you a link to go and find that shame worksheet, and just to give you the ability to start thinking about how to let go of family shame, because it's deep and it's dark and it's heavy, and it takes a little bit of time to let go. But there are real workable steps you can take to slowly look at it and release it. So I'd love to share that with you if you're game, anybody who's game.
Yeah, no, I definitely will be grabbing that, because I think it's something I've done a lot of inner work, but maybe there is stuff that is still lingering down there that needs to be brought to the surface and kicked to the curb. So definitely going to be using that, because all of the stuff that I've used from you in the past has been very, very powerful. So I don't doubt that this will not be just as powerful, if not more. So yeah, I think shame definitely is a huge thing, because we start to take on that guilt and say, oh, well, maybe they're right and we're wrong. And then there's all kinds of, we go down the negative rabbit hole of, especially with, and I think it's a lot with women. I'm sure men go through it as well. However, I'm not a man, so I can't really communicate in that sense. But I think there's a lot of, we bring on so much on ourselves. We put so much onto ourselves that we should be a certain way and we should follow a certain path. And if we don't, it's like we become this black sheep of the family. And so it's very interesting that you mentioned shame, because I think it's a huge, huge thing that most of us face and deal with on so many levels. And yes, it does take a lot of work to kind of get through that. But when you do, it is very, very freeing. And so what would you say is the final step out of the 3 steps to really allowing you to change that relationship with your family?
So I think the final step is really getting used to and accepting who you are, getting used to being the black sheep, getting used to being different, getting used to connecting with some gifts and some desires inside of yourself that you just really don't have a choice. You need to follow. You feel that inside of yourself. However, following it forces you to stick out a little bit more, forces you to go against the grain a little bit more. And sometimes that can garner some negative responses or resistance from other people. And I think instead of staying in that resistance or paying attention to any of those negative responses, I think myself, what I had to do was really not just get used to, but really sidle up to and enjoy and become my own biggest fan of the work that I felt like I needed to do. I am my biggest fan. I am my biggest support. I am the person I go to talk to when I need someone to talk to, because I'm going to tell myself and how great everything is going to turn out. So big step, and there are workable steps to get closer toward that. But the idea of it, just to think about the idea of you becoming your own biggest fan and support, that's a radical idea. Because once you become that for yourself, you don't need anybody else to give you that. You don't expect anybody else ever to give you that. All you ever expect from everybody is to give it to themselves. Create the space for other people to really bond with their own greatness, to bond with the great thing inside of themselves that they've connected to, that they must do, that might not look the same as everything else that's going on out there. So step number 3 is just become your own biggest fan and support, more than anyone you know.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing, because once we really step into just tuning into our own selves and being in alignment with ourselves and our higher selves, then you're never really alone, right? Like, you're not always looking for that outside source to really help you grow. Or yes, you might have mentors and coaches like ourselves, but I think really, if we are our own cheerleaders, it doesn't matter what anybody else says. It doesn't matter what the naysayers say, because they can't see what you see and they don't know who you are. Only you know who you are. And being your own best friend, being your own cheerleader, your self-supporter, I think is truly a way to actually be free, because then everyone else, you can just enjoy them without needing them to provide you with that extra support, right? You can just enjoy who they are rather than what they're bringing.
I look at in life as heroes, for sure. You know, oftentimes there's that question, who is your biggest hero in life? And although there are a lot of heroes, people that I really resonate with their journey or look up to for certain things, my biggest hero in life is myself. And I think that more and more of us women are staking that claim. I am my biggest hero. And all I do is look in the mirror and say, look what you've done. Look what you've done. Of course, you're your biggest hero. So that's really important to me.
Yeah, I think, being your biggest hero. I like, even just looking back how far you've come. And I know even when I published the book and got it out there, like, even looking at that going, oh my God, I've actually become a published author, and I did it while raising my son, and I've become a coach, and I did it still. Like, to accomplish all of that, it's amazing to think. And it's not to say that I am better than anybody else. It's just to embrace how far I've come on my journey and how amazing that is. It doesn't make me think, oh, I'm better than anybody else who hasn't done that, or because I'm on my own journey. So doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. So I think, yeah, being your own hero and really embracing your journey is huge. It's a huge thing. And once you start to do that, you kind of, everything starts to come a lot easier, and it starts to open up doors and possibilities that were never around before. So I think you really hit home with that one. And I think all these three topics, all these three key points that you've mentioned are amazing. So yeah, what would you say now, if you could give our audience one piece of advice that they could really run with regards to really changing their relationship, their lives with regards to their family, what would that one piece of advice be?
I think it really comes down to the one thing that has become a little bit of a buzzword, but is absolutely unequivocally true, and that is self-love. So really learning and practicing how to fill yourself up first. Not only, but first. There's many people around us we want to fill up, whether it's our spouses or our children or other extended members of the family. There's always people who need help, who need direction, who need support. And it is entirely impossible to give anything to anyone unless you've given it all to yourself first. Because when you give it all to yourself, then you have it to give. Okay, so when you don't give it to yourself, you don't have it to give. And when people put the lean on you for a little bit of extra help, you feel like you have to dig so deep to find 5 minutes, or you get so frustrated because you didn't get anything done for yourself, almost resent helping somebody else, even your own children, even your own spouse, or even your close friends and family. So I'm really understanding that loving myself, giving to myself, filling myself up in any way, shape, or form where I feel good. So I always feel good. There's really rare times where I don't feel good. And when I don't, I really take care of honoring and nurturing that. But most of the time, I feel good. And so it's so easy to give. I have so much to give to everybody all the time. I feel good and I don't feel like I can give. I just step back and re-energize myself. Make sure I remember what it is I'm supposed to give to myself first. So self-care, radical self-care, the most important thing in the world. You know, so having a life coach, having somebody who supports you, having a surrogate who can love you, support you, you know, take care of you until which time that you can do that for yourself. I mean, isn't that what we are? Isn't that what we do? Yeah. And as a life coach, learning how to take care of yourself first is so important, because you're not giving anything to your clients, anything of value to them. I mean, you're not giving them the example of what they need to do. It's the first thing as a coach that you have to do for your clients is take care of yourself. If you don't even do that, then you shouldn't be coaching, because that's the first example they need to look at.
Exactly.
So yes, radical self-care.
Beautiful. I think you're totally right. And I had to learn that the hard way, because I was juggling a young child, building my business. And I think with your help and with Allison's help, I've really been able to drive that home, is that if I don't take care of myself, I am no good to anybody. I'm not any good for my family. I'm not any good to my clients. But if I'm able to take care of myself, and it can be just 10 minutes to journal, it could be something like sitting in a bathtub for 5 minutes while you read a book, or listening to your podcast, meditating, doing yoga, working out, whatever fills your cup, I think is huge, right? It doesn't matter. Like for me, it could be completely different than what it is for you. So I think once you, as a coach, if you don't take care of yourself, yes, you cannot coach anybody else, because it just doesn't work. You're not going to be energetically enough for what your clients need. And it's a huge energy zap in the sense, because there's so much coming out of you as a coach when you're dealing with your clients. So yeah, self-care before you deal with anybody and anything, because that's the only way that you will be able to do it without resenting the opposite person, be it your child, your husband, your wife, your boss, your coworkers. That could be anybody and anything. So I think that is amazing. So Andrea, if people want to get in contact with you because they resonate with you, kind of want to find out more about what you do, how can they reach you?
So there's a couple of ways. Like I said, I'm doing a live stream educational series this week. It's going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on my Wise Women Productions Facebook page. So if you want to tune into that, it'll be 6 p.m. each day. And each live stream is going to have a phenomenal topic, also accompanied by a free gift. So there's 1, 2, 3 free gifts in total for each 3 of the live streams. Okay. And whichever, tune into all 3. They're absolutely free, and you're going to get a font of information and some free gifts. So Wise Women Productions is our Facebook page. Coaching with Wise Women is another Facebook page that we utilize a lot of information on there. And stay tuned, because we have a lot of courses and online workshops coming up. And if you're interested in working with either myself or Allison, you can just message us on the Wise Women Facebook page.
Awesome. Thank you. And yes, they are amazing. So if you want to reach out to them, feel free. They're amazing women as a coaching duo. I've had the pleasure of working with both of them. So highly, highly recommend them. So that is all we have for today. I will actually be taking a bit of a break. I will be traveling to India for about 3.5 weeks. So the Soul Inspired Playground will come back to you after September, probably September 16th, 17th that week. So we will be back then. However, it will transform into Motivation Mondays again to kind of change things up, and also allow me to get time with family, because we will be going there to celebrate the life of my beautiful grandmother. So if you guys are resonating with myself, feel free to message me. I do have my special still going on for $97 for my strategy session. So I'd be happy to sit down with you guys and get you going to whatever goals you are looking to achieve. And you can also go to www.igniteyourinnerpotential.ca to find out more about myself. I hope you guys have all enjoyed this beautiful broadcast with the lovely Andrea, and have taken a lot away from this, because I think this is a topic that a lot of us have struggled with over the years. And I think these 3 tools will really help you change that relationship with your family. So have a fantastic rest of your week, guys. I will be back on Wednesday before I fly out for Winning Wednesdays. And then you will see me next week for Motivation Mondays for the next few weeks until I get back. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Thanks, Madura.
You're welcome. Thanks, Andrea.